Welcome back for 4.8 part 2. So we're still dealing with complex numbers. Remember that complex numbers take on the form a plus bi, a plus bi. And when we graph them in the complex plane, a is like x and bi is like y. So today what we're going to be doing is adding, subtracting, and multiplying. So let's start with adding. If we're going to add two complex numbers like 4 plus 3i and add that to negative 4 plus 3i, guys, it really couldn't be any easier. All you're going to do is add the real parts together. So 4 and negative 4 will be 0. And then add the imaginary parts. 3i plus 3i will be 6i. Done and done. So again, that was A and BI and BI. This is the sum of the A's, and that's the sum of the BI's. Now, subtracting, equally as easy. I just encourage you to distribute in the subtraction and change it from subtraction to adding the opposite. So let's take a look at another example. 1 plus 5i minus 3 minus 2i. So what I'm going to do is rewrite this as adding the opposite. So distribute in the negative, and that changes 3 to negative 3, and it changes negative 2i to positive 2i. And then when I add it to the first complex number, 1 plus 5i, well, I'm going to give you 3 seconds to think about what the answer will be. Did you come up with negative 2 plus 7i? We should have. You're going to add the real parts, the 1 and the negative 3, and then add the complex parts. 5i plus 2i is 7i. Finally, multiplying. So if you're going to multiply complex numbers, just remember the pattern. I squared is negative 1. I came from, let's see, what do I want to say here? I came from the square root of negative 1. I squared is equal to negative 1. I cubed is going to be negative I. And then I to the 4th is going to be positive 1. I won. And the 2 in the middle are negative. All right, let's get to work. 3i times negative 1 minus 2i. We need to multiply. So I'm going to distribute in the 3i, distribute in the 3i. 3i times negative 1 would be just negative 3i. And then 3i times negative 2i is going to be negative 6i squared. Remember that I squared is negative 1. So replace I squared with negative 1. And that gives me, oh, no, not 7, positive 6. Negative 6 times negative 1 is positive 6. Negative 3i plus 6i, or no, negative 3i plus 6. So I was getting ahead of myself. What I want you to do is rewrite this as a complex number. With a complex number, the real part goes first and the I part goes second. Now, could you have written this 6 minus 3i? Absolutely. It means the same thing. Those are both the same number. And then let's do one more. Example 2 here. I don't know, let's call it 4 plus 3i times negative 1 minus 2i. So as you can see here, we have a binomial times a binomial, 2 terms times 2 terms. So I think of this as FOIL, first, outer, inner, and last. So my firsts are going to be 4 times negative 1, which is negative 4. My outers are going to be 4 times negative 2i, which would give me negative 8i. Inners are going to be 3i times negative 1, which is negative 3i. And then my lasts are 3i times negative 2i, which gives me negative 6i squared. Hold your horses. What's I squared? I squared is negative 1. So this becomes positive 6. Add the real parts. Negative 4 plus 6 is 2. Add the imaginary parts. Negative 8i minus 3i is negative 11i. And there we go. That's our final answer. Okay, so pretty easy. Pretty straightforward. I want you to think about what is I to the 35th? So for next time, I'd like you to try and simplify I to the 35th. We'll come back to that tomorrow.